So what I'll do is I'll try to have some questions which are bringing to light some dilemmas that other authors have raised. So in this world, once this book has come, that Fooled by Randomness by Talib, now everyone says that, oh, you can't plan much, things are random, so don't take much credit for it anyways. So again in this book, same as ever, Morgan Housel says that important events are a result of few things going right? So, but if those things had not occurred, the event wouldn't have happened itself. So my question to you is, are there some points in your career you think are those defining moments which shaped your career?
That's a very searching question, Nikhil. But yeah, every new job, every new assignment has been a learning experience, has been a turning point. I've talked to you about my Arrack bottling experience. That was very unique. Not many IAS officers have that. Very few people in the world have an experience of building bottling plants for liquor. But I had also worked in Delhi, in Government of India, in the Ministry of Finance, when we did the Blitzkrieg reforms in 1991. In a month before many of you were born, perhaps, we had the 1991 economic reforms. You can't imagine the world before economic reforms. For those of you of your age, you don't understand the world before the economic reforms. I happened to be in the Ministry of Finance at that time. Just to give you a flavor of what the world was like at that time, if you went into a grocery shop, you had 3 brands of soap and 2 brands of shampoo to choose from. If you went abroad, you were given $20, just $20. People used to wait for years to get a landline telephone connection or an LPG cylinder. You had to book us, these days there are millions of motorcycles on the road. Those days we had to book a scooter and wait for years. And people used to give a booking receipt for a scooter as dowry because it would take so long. Okay? And the government was everything. Government used to make bread. The modern bread, I don't know if you heard of it. Government used to make bread and we used to take pride. When I went to Delhi and ate modern bread, I used to come and boast in Hyderabad that I ate modern bread. So that was the world before economic reforms. I happened to be in the Ministry of Finance in Delhi during 1991 when the Blitzkrieg reforms happened. So that was, I think, a great learning experience. I don't know about turning point. I went into the World Bank when I was about 45 years old. That was a great learning experience as well because it's one thing, I was finance secretary here in Andhra Pradesh doing hands-on job, but then when I went into the World Bank, I was advising other governments on how to do public finance management in countries in Africa, countries in East Asia, and in the Pacific, like Papua New Guinea. One of the things I learned from that experience is that even though our systems, our structures are all a function of our cultures, ultimately as human beings, we're all the same. Okay? A great learning experience for me. Then of course, I was in the RBI during the Lehman crisis that I spoke about. So many of these have been turning points, unexpected events that have been great learning experience. In real time, there were challenges, but when I look back now, they're happy experiences.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you have straddled different worlds. Now, the first one that I'll talk about is, see here, we have a lot of students who are from engineering and science background. Then we have a mix from commerce and other sciences backgrounds. You did your MSc in physics, and after that you became an administrator, then went on to do your economics. Now there's a popular quote about these two disciplines which says that 3% of laws in physical sciences explain 99% of the phenomena, right? 3% explain the 99%. But in social sciences, 99% of the laws don't explain even 3% of the phenomena, right? Some popular author, Dr. Derman, had said this. Now, you have straddled both the disciplines. Obviously, you didn't practice physics, but yeah, economics a lot. So would you agree? And do you think the struggle of a social scientist is different from a physical scientist?
I do not know if the struggle is different, but I do know that social sciences are quite different from physical sciences. In fact, I've written, I gave a lecture at Indian Institute of Science some 12 years ago, exactly on this subject, why economics is not physics. Let's, instead of talking about social sciences and physical sciences, let's talk about economics and physics in concrete terms. Okay? Physics is an exact science. Economics is a social science. Laws of physics are immutable. They are the same across time, across space. Gravity is the same. Laws of economics are a function of human behavior. I cannot change the mass of an electron by my behavior. I can change the mass of a stock or a derivative by my behavior. In physical sciences, progressive knowledge happens from theory to practice and practice to theory. Take physics, for example. You heard of Michelson-Morley experiment? Michelson-Morley experiment in 1899, which discovered that the velocity of light is constant. They did an experiment and found that the velocity of light was constant, but they could not explain that. Einstein had to come, I think, in 1926. For about 25 years, they could not explain this. Einstein came and explained that. So we went from practice to theory, right? They discovered something in practice, and then they found a theoretical explanation for that. In physics, you can also find from theory to practice. You know the Higgs boson, the God particle, right? The God particle was predicted by theory, but for the last, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 years, they've not been able to find it. Sometime in 2012, they said it actually discovered the God particle, the Higgs boson. So that is a transition from theory to practice. What I'm trying to tell you is that in physical sciences, progressive knowledge can be from practice to theory and theory to practice. In economics, progressive knowledge can only be one way, from practice to theory. No economist, no finance expert like Professor Nikhil can say, this is what my theory says, and this is how it must be. No, there is no such thing. You modify your theory depending on practice. There is no such thing that no equation that says that inflation next month will come down by 1 percentage point, a 0.1 percentage point. Okay? If inflation comes down by 0.1%, you say, okay, my model is correct. If it does not come down, you change your model. You don't say my finding is wrong. Okay? So in social sciences, progressive knowledge is from practice to theory. If something works in practice, they try to fit the theory into it.
Thank you, sir. The other area that you have straddled is between fiscal policy and monetary policy. Right? So when you were in public finance, you wanted to do something and maybe you were nudging RBI to do it. While at RBI, you are being nudged to do some things. So, and then you also talk about the challenges of making budgets. You say that, oh, revenue is constrained, expenditure is constrained, and borrowing is also constrained. So you are working with constraints. So my question is, what were the challenges in fiscal policy, and were they much more than monetary policy?
Yeah, what Professor Nikhil is referring to is the impossible trinity. Your expenditure, that has to go up. Your revenues cannot go up further. There's a limit on how much you can borrow. So how can you it's an over-constrained problem. Those of you learned linear programming, you know that. It's an over-constrained problem. Okay? That is the impossible trinity of making budgets. He talked about fiscal and monetary policy. How many of you know the difference between fiscal and monetary policy? Okay, that's okay, very few. You will know. By the time you finish your education in IMT, you will be experts in fiscal and monetary policy. But let me tell you, for the purpose of this response, the fiscal policy has to do with public finance and the taxation, expenditure management, debt management, etc., of the governments. Monetary policy has to do with the money supply, credit management, and inflation. Both monetary policy and fiscal policy are necessary to ensure that there is growth in the economy, that there is stability in the economy. Both are necessary. And fiscal policy and monetary policy have to act in coordination. Fiscal policy is typically done by the governments, and monetary policy by the central banks. I don't know if you have a question later on about why there's a need for a central bank. Maybe we'll talk about that later on. So there is the government in Delhi, the central government, that does fiscal policy for the country. There are state governments in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana, in Odisha, in Manipur, in Rajasthan, which do fiscal policy for the states. There is only one central bank for the country. There is no central bank for different states. There is only one central bank for the country, which is the Reserve Bank of India, which does monetary policy. I had the challenge of doing both of them, and both of them are equally challenging. You cannot say which is more difficult, because when you are in that hot seat, they are both difficult jobs. Fiscal policy, as I said, is about raising revenues, but you can't raise revenues because politicians are scared about raising revenues because people will not vote for them. So they cannot raise revenue. They cannot cut expenditure because they want to give freebies all the time. If, we saw the election in Andhra Pradesh recently, if the former chief minister said, I'll give you 3,000 rupees per month pension, the current chief minister said, I'll give you 4,000 rupees. So he promised more. Now, the difficulty of once you promise that, you cannot withdraw it. So the difficulty of meeting all the expenditure needs, and then there is, see, how do you meet your expenditure? Either from your earning or from borrowing, right? Earning for the state governments is limited. They cannot raise, they can, but they don't want to raise taxes. They can't cut down expenditure. Where do they get money from? They have to borrow. But if you borrow money, you have to repay. In principle, a loan has to repay for itself. Some of you might have taken student loan, right? If you take a student loan, the bank is giving you a loan on the understanding that you will get a degree from here, you will get a job, you will be able to repay it. You will be able to earn your living and be able to repay. Your loan repays itself. But if the government borrows money and spends it on giving away to people, where does the government get additional revenue to repay the loan? The debt burden will build up. That's what is happening in state governments and in the central government. That is the main fiscal problem of the country today. The main monetary policy problem is controlling inflation. There is, if Professor Nikhil gives me 100 rupees, the 100 rupees has gone from his pocket, has come to my pocket. But the total money supply in the system has not gone up, right? It's the same. There is only one institution that can actually create money in the country. That is the Reserve Bank of India. Okay? Reserve Bank of India can create money out of thin air. But just because they can create money, they cannot create money recklessly. They have to do it in a measured way to ensure that price stability is there, financial stability is there. And the way they create money is by calibrating the interest rate. You will learn about all that. It is not meant to be a classroom lecture. There are very experienced professors to teach you all that. But the challenge of the central bank, the challenge of monetary policy is to calibrate the interest rates in the economy and to manage the liquidity, that is, create money supply, so that there is price stability, inflation. Inflation is low and stable.
Thank you, sir. Sir, so I think this conversation is getting very technical. I don't know how many of them are still with us.
Sorry if I'm getting technical, but
No, but
yeah.
the question was technical, so.
No, that's okay. But something, something will stay with you, monetary policy, fiscal policy, when they teach you 2 months down the line about all this. I'm sure that this will come into your mind.
So let's get to some lighter question. Actually, I was reading your book while at home. So I came across that paragraph about ambition, where you talk about good ambition and bad ambition. So I was discussing it with my daughter. She said, what about people with no ambition? And a lot of youngsters don't know what to do. They do things because they are told this is right, and that then leads to lack of passion. So my question is, maybe you can talk about good and bad ambition, but first talk about what to do with this problem of no ambition.
As much as your daughter asked you that question, how old is she?
She's 18.
18. Yeah, I'm sure that she has an ambition. Okay, people, all of you have an ambition. So has Professor Nichols' daughter. Everybody has an ambition. I used to go, when I was governor, I used to go to schools, and I used to travel on the road. If I see a school on the wayside, I will stop there. Typically go to government schools and talk to children there. Aspirations of people have gone up. The other day I went to a function. One 15-year-old girl, it was a wedding function. She said, "Can I take a selfie with you?" So I said, "Okay, take a selfie." Then I said, "What do you want to be?" I thought she would say, "I want to be an IAS officer like you. I want to be a governor like you." She said, "I want to be an astronaut like Sunita Williams." Okay? So people's aspirations have gone up. When I go to schools and ask them, what do you want to be? They want to be like Indira Nooyi. They want to be like Geeta Gopinath. They want to be like Kalpana Chawla. They want to be like Shyamala Gopinath or Usha Thorat, who are deputy governors of the RBI. People's aspirations have gone up. That is a very good sign. Okay? And the problem is that our systems have to match up to that. You talked about ambition. How many of you read Julius Caesar? There is some quote about Caesar was ambitious, right? Something like that. Where that is shown as being ambitious was wrong, a wrong thing. Okay, being ambitious. It's the way you interpret ambition. My parents, when they brought me up, I was brought up like having ambition is a bad thing. Because having ambition is like, I want to own a big mansion. I want to be I want to have lots of riches, enjoy life. That used to be treated as ambition. That was against our values. But that's not the way I learned ambition afterwards. Ambition is a challenge you set for yourself, right? You are ambitious in the sense that you want to be the CEO of your company. You're ambitious in the sense that after you finish your education here, you want to start an enterprise. You want to become an entrepreneur. You are ambitious in the sense that you want to innovate something. These are all ambitions to have, and I think ambition is a very, very important thing. So ambition can be seen as a negative thing, like my parents saw it, and ambition can be seen as a positive thing. Okay? This is not a lighter vein answer that you wanted, but I just wanted, but hopefully not a technical answer, that having ambition is a good thing. That's what I write in my book.